Today's landscape photography video has it all. Not only do I capture a spectacular winter sunset, but I'm also giving away my camera. And as if that wasn't enough, I'm also introducing this behind the shot segment where I explain how I go from a completely ugly and unedited RAW file to a finished image. But before we get into it, I just want to mention my Canadian Rockies photography workshop this September. If you'd like to join us for a few days of shooting at some of my favourite locations, there's a link in the description. Right, now get yourself all cosy and warm while I go out and get frostbite to capture this shot. All right, so we're used to it being cold in the winter in Nova Scotia, but the last 2 days has been a bit extreme because we've had an ice storm. I mean, the temperature's only been like, what, minus 14 Celsius? But it's the wind. The wind has been horrendous. And while it's been unpleasant, it's actually made some really interesting conditions because now all of the snow that we had, well, it's frozen on top. So you've got this really beautiful layer of gorgeous, shiny ice. So I'm going to go out and see what I can find and brave the elements on a freezing cold beach. Are you coming?
Maybe later. Tell me what you got.
So this is what we're dealing with. Everything has just got this thick layer of ice on it. So all of the snow that's down here is totally encrusted in ice. And some parts of it are really thick, like, oh God, this is thick and hard. It's a good job I'm extremely overweight and unusually heavy. Oh, oh, oh. This is unpleasant. Alright, that's better. This was looking like some kind of alien landscape, and you know me, I love that kind of thing. So really today, this is just kind of a recce mission, because as you can see behind me, it's just blue sky central, looking right into the sun now. So I'm not going to get any kind of a nice sunset with this kind of light, but that wind is painful. I cannot stress enough how painful that wind is, but with conditions like this, I've just got to come and have a look because it's not very likely, but there's a chance that tomorrow morning, maybe I'll get a nice bit of light, get an actual sunrise, and if this ice either stays the same or builds up even more, then I've really got an interesting foreground element to work with. But just look at all of this ice, it's so bizarre. So what you've got here is the sand being carved out by the waves, but then the ice building up on top of that sand so quickly because of the freezing cold wind, and it creates these beautiful shapes and patterns. I mean, look at that, it's so weird. And look at this business. What interests me the most though is this build-up of ice that you can see over here on these rocks. Now that will not work for sunrise tomorrow because the sun rises over on the other side of those trees there, so that won't work. But I do know of a beach a little bit closer to home that has some interesting rock formations that are likely to have the same build-up of ice. So I'll check the weather tonight, and if that is the case, that's where I'll be going in the morning. Oh, look at this. So weird. Oh yeah, there's plenty to work with here, but that beautiful blue sky, well, it's not very conducive to epic shots, is it? And then if that plan doesn't work out, there's always going to be frozen waterfalls. But I'm sure you guys are sick of seeing spectacular, gorgeous, beautiful scenes of frozen waterfalls in the winter. Surely you've had enough of that. No? Oh, well, that's good then. That's really good. And then Amanda showed up, making it very clear that she'd had enough of being cold and wanted to go home. Oh yeah, going home to a cosy fire and a cute cat. There's nothing better than that, is there?
What you doing, love?
Oh, I'm just prepping my next critique session for my Patreon supporters. Oh, by the way, if you want to get your images critiqued and help support this channel, there's a link to my Patreon page below.
Are you going to do that camera giveaway?
Right, yeah, my old Sony A7RIV. I'm giving it away. Now, at first glance, you might think, wow, that's brilliant. That's really nice of you, Gavin. But, you know, it is me we're talking about. So it doesn't include the lens. Doesn't include the L bracket either. The reason why I'm giving it away is because I've dropped this camera quite a few times. And sometimes the sensor gets kind of stuck in vibration mode and it kind of wobbles a bit. You can fix it just by going into the sensor cleaning and switching that on and off, and then that fixes it. But yeah, it's not perfect.
It's not much of a giveaway, is it?
That's better than no.
I'd prefer nothing.
Well, there's one final thing that I really should mention.
Let me guess. You're going to make them pay for shipping.
I'm going to have to make them pay for shipping because this is Canada. It's Canada Post, right? What if you're in New Zealand? The cost could be outrageous. Anyway, to have a chance of winning this piece of shiny Sony camera gear, all you've got to do is just join my newsletter. And if you're already subscribed to my newsletter, you've also still got a chance of getting your name pulled out randomly to win this absolutely delightful camera. There's a link in the description below for that.
So what's the plan for tomorrow then?
Well, I've just checked the weather and it's not looking good for sunrise, but it is looking pretty good for sunset.
Well, it's a good thing you got that hammer then. It's icy.
All right, well, let's magically make it tomorrow with a very lame click of the fingers, like every other YouTuber on the planet. All right, it's the day after, and I think I'm going to go to the beach to shoot an icy sunset. But in order for me to get out of the house, and more importantly, get back in when it's dark, I'm going to need this. As you can see here, the stairs are completely covered in ice, and it is really sketchy. So, it's hammer time. Oh, that was a big piece. Move to Nova Scotia, they said. It won't be that cold, will it? No, of course it won't. Mind you though, I mean, you can't have an epic icy sunset without a load of ice, can you? Just a bit more. The absolute joy of a Canadian winter. I mean, I could have flown to Costa Rica for a couple of weeks to get some sun, but you guys don't want to watch that, do you? Nah, I'm sure you'd rather watch me suffer in the freezing cold, with crashing waves and the kind of atmospheric sunset that you only ever really get in the depths of winter. Well, it's 5 p.m. I've actually had 6 hours of sleep, and I do have a face like Joy Behar chewing a scorpion. But I'm quite happy because it's almost sunset, the surf is up, and everything's covered in ice. So I'm quite excited. Are you going to join me coming out?
How cold is it?
It's -7.
I think I'll pass.
Well, what are you going to do?
Well, at times like this, where I like to read a copy of stories within stories.
Is it true that some people say that that is the best landscape photography book ever written?
I think most people do.
Really?
Yeah.
Where would you get a signed copy of that fantastic book?
Well, there'll be a link in the description.
Well, you can't go wrong with that, can you? Hey, now, you sure that you don't want to join me?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm already engaged.
All right. I'll see you in a bit then. It's quite a nice light, actually. So I grabbed me camera bag and me spikes so I wouldn't slide around on that treacherous ice. Are you sure you don't want to come, love?
I'm positive.
With the wind chill, it's only like -90. It's not that bad.
Bye.
Fair enough. Shivering in misery is not for everybody, is it? This cold is actually pretty evil, I'm not going to lie. But the light's quite nice. There's some lovely little slashes of pink and orange. It's quite nice. I might actually get a shot tonight. But I think it's more a case of how long can I stand this wind. It is, oh God, I should have worn my mask. It is brutal on the face. But have a look at this ice on these rocks. It's quite interesting. Ice formations on the kelp were fascinating, and the sky was shaping up to be a moody one. So obviously what I'm hoping for is good light, as always, but the thing that I really want to try and capture, if it happens, and if I get good light it will happen, is the way that colourful light might just bounce off of all of this ice. See these beautiful reflective surfaces. When you get, let's say, red or pink light in the sky, and it starts to reflect, off of ice. It just looks absolutely fantastic. So that is what I'm hoping for. Whoa, whoa, I nearly got caught by that one. But it's just so beautiful. I mean, look at this business.
And I'll bet Amanda was having just as much fun as I was whilst reading my book, Stories Within Stories. Yeah, what's that?
But, you know, as always, I kind of feel like I'm running out of time. I should have come here half an hour ago. Looked out the window, it was snowing, I thought there's no chance. So I didn't bother until it was too late. But anyway, I'm here now, so I'm going to make the most of it. So if you look over here, there's a big rock over there with some interesting ice on it. I want to go and take a look at that.
Oh yes, this was exactly what I was hoping for. Ice sculptures, crashing waves, and gorgeous light. But would I be able to use my camera in these frigid conditions?
Well, as soon as I got down here, the light started kicking off. I found this composition here with this beautiful ice coming off of this rock, and these waves are now wrapping around that rock, and I'm getting wet because I'm standing pretty much in the ocean, and I'm getting these long exposures of this water just crashing around this rock. It is absolutely fantastic. The problem is I can't feel my fingers. Everything hurts, and I'm literally useless. I'm just completely incompetent at using my camera. I can't even use my thumb or my fingers to control the dials, so I don't even know if I'm getting these shots. Just brighten up this exposure a little bit, let's get that shot. So I'm gonna have to just put this camera down and try and concentrate on getting a shot because the light is fading as I speak. All right, back in a second.
Do you know that feeling when everything hurts but you're ecstatically happy because you got the shot? I managed to capture this shot in just one frame. No focus stacking or bracketing and no time blending, which is good because I was barely able to operate my camera. And if you want to see a raw file comparison, just keep watching till the end of the video.
Well, it was bound to happen. A wave took me out and just soaked the camera, which is, I don't think electronics like that kind of stuff, do they? Seawater, it's not good for it, is it? But hopefully Sony's not watching this. I'm pretty sure I'm screwed. Anyway, I'll try and get this off. It's probably just rock hard ice on the lens now. I'll try and clean it off, see if I can get one more shot, because the light's not totally done, but I think I probably can't get it back in that spot there. The tide was coming in and it's definitely chased me out. Oh, I can't even feel my fingers. It's so bloody cold. All right, let's see if I can find one more shot.
Now you would think I'd learned my lesson, but no. I set up for one last shot.
Well, I've already been wiped out again in this spot twice. I don't know if it's worth even bothering trying to save this camera now. It's probably just a dud. But anyway, I'm just going to try and get one last shot as these waves come in. Look at these buggers. They mean business. The light has almost faded off, so I'm going to take one last shot and call it quits.
You know when you get a shot like this, it's time to quit. Clean your camera and put it back in the camera bag and hope that it lives to shoot another day.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this video because I had a thoroughly awful time recording it. I'm in a lot of pain right now and I think my camera's toast. I'm going to take this back and try and dry it out before I send it off to Sony for repair. It's been awful experience. But if you did enjoy the video, please give it the old thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, don't forget to tickle my bell. And I'll see you in the next one. I'm going to go home now and cook my very own butter chicken. Good night.
Alright, let me show you this raw file comparison where I explain how I go from this completely unedited raw file to this finished image. Now, if you like this behind the shot segment, you are probably gonna love this free webinar that I'm doing with Blake Rudis from F64 Academy, and we've called it The Truth Behind the Shot, where we reveal a whole bunch of post-processing secrets for free. So if you're interested in that, there's a link in the description. And while you're there, if you feel like it, you can vote on the latest photo contest between myself and Blake to see which of these two images you genuinely like the best. Okay, so I'm here in Adobe Photoshop, and this is the finished image that you saw in the video there. And you'll notice it's a square crop. But if I show you the full frame, this is the full image that I started with. And as I was editing it and I was looking at it, I just thought, no, I need to get in tighter. And I wish I'd spotted this at the time while I was out shooting, but as you remember, I was in a bit of a state. So I eventually processed the image, and then after I'd finished processing it, I cropped it to this square. And I much prefer the simplicity of that composition. But let me take you through all of the steps that I took with this image. So I'll just switch this all off and show you that is the raw file. So there's nothing really happening much with that raw file there. So all of these layers that you see on top of that, these are all the different processes that I've added. So I'll talk you through each and every one of these. So what I did with this raw file that you can see here, I brought it into Adobe Photoshop as a smart object. I then duplicated it onto this second layer here, and then I made that a bit darker and just blended the sky in. So if you look at that, I knew straight away I wanted to make the sky a bit darker because it's kind of blown out looking. So I just added that duplicated layer and messed around with the exposure and just masked in the sky just to balance that out. And I've called that sky balance. And then after that, I just wanted to dodge some of the highlights and the accents. So if I switch this layer off and then on, off and then on, you know, you can see these areas of already interesting light and accents that I just wanted to accentuate. And to create that dodge layer, I actually used an action that Blake and I have created for our new course, Make Great Shots, which comes out later this month. But all that it really is it's a solid color fill layer where we've actually specified the color that we want, and then it's got a linear light blend mode with a fill of 10%. And of course, I've just brushed that into the areas that I really like. After that, I still wanted this sky to just be a little bit darker in the top, so I added a burn layer where I just made that a smidge darker. And then after that, I just wanted to kind of brighten up the reds and the yellows in this sky area. So then I added this color balance layer. So if I switch that off, you can see that that's really popped those hot colors. And the way that I did that is I went into my mid-tones, I cranked up the reds, and then I pulled this slider from the blues over to the yellows just to make things a little bit warmer. And then also in the highlights, I did the same thing, but a little bit more aggressively. I cranked up those reds. So if I switch that off and on again, you can really see that that's made those lovely warm tones in the sky and in the ice and in the water really pop. After that, I wanted to brighten up these darker areas that you can see here. So I added this exposure adjustment layer. So if I switch that off, you can see that this area here, if I switch that off, it's really dark and dingy. So I wanted to lift that out with this exposure adjustment layer. And you can see that I've increased the exposure by just over a full stop there. And then after that, I wanted to add a bit of atmosphere. And I call this Vaseline. If I switch this off and then back on again, people call this Autumn effect these days, but I just call it Vaseline because back in the day, photographers would just rub a smudge of Vaseline on the lens to make everything look kind of hazy and blurry. So basically, it's just a Gaussian blur layer that I've added, and then I've just masked it into only the sky and perhaps this little bit of reflected light that you could see on the water there, just to give it that nice sort of atmosphere. But of course, I wanted that blur layer or that Vaseline layer to be a bit warmer, so I've added a color balance adjustment layer again with boosted reds in the midtones, and I'm thinking, yeah, there you go, and in the highlights, just to make that a little bit warmer, and that color change only affects that Vaseline layer underneath. And then above that, I've added a couple of photo filters. So this one here, let's have a look at this. I think this is just a red photo filter with a density of 25%, just to warm things up. And then another one on top of that, which cools things down. So this one is a cooling filter. Switch that off and on. I'm not sure if I like that one, to be honest. If you look at the ice and the water, it's definitely made that a lot cooler and bluer, but it looks a bit unnatural. Once you switch it off, I actually think that that looks a little bit better off. Although maybe what I could do is just turn down the opacity a little bit, and that's probably just about right. And then finally, I've got a curves adjustment layer just to pop the highlights. If I look at the actual curve itself, you can see all I've done is I've just popped the highlights, and that's pretty much on the whole image except for this already super bright hotspot that you can see in the sky. As you can see there on that actual mask, I've punched a hole through it so that it's not affecting this, but everything else has had the highlights really exaggerated quite a lot. And then of course I did that final crop, as I mentioned at the beginning there, that was something like this. Basically, I just wanted to bring your eye much closer to this ice and that sunset and this action in the foreground and these lovely little splashes of light there. So there you go, that is the finished crop there. And I don't know if I'm always gonna do this whole behind the shot segment, but if you did enjoy it, post a comment and let me know. And then if I get more requests, I might do this a little bit more often. All right, that is finally it from me today. I just want to say a huge thank you to all of these Patreon supporters who help me to keep this channel going. You are absolute legends. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.